here in San Jose Unified. My hope for CACSE is we continue to improve communication and collaboration.
I'm Shelby, and I'm a parent. And my hope is to become more educated, learn how the schools work, the district works, and how to advocate better for myself, my kids, and help others.
I'm Jennifer Lucas. I'm a parent and professional, although my kids don't attend this district, and one does have an IEP. I work for an independent advocacy organization called the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. There's 12 regional offices throughout California, and we basically are tasked with ensuring people with developmental disabilities and their families receive the services and supports they need.
And you're often a resource in the area people don't know about?
Yeah, and we're kind of small. There's 2 of us, and we serve 7-county area. So yeah. So we don't just focus on special ed. We the whole gamut.
But your partner David Grady 2 years ago did a presentation on the IEP process for us.
Great.
So thank you for coming.
I'm Sandra Asher. I am a parent, and my hope for the CAC is to educate parents about special ed and resources within the district, and also build collaboration between parents and the district.
Nice.
I'm Deborah, and I have 2 kids in the special ed. One's at Pioneer Elementary School, and the other one is at AIDS program, AIDS Liberty Adult Career Program. And I'm also just recently became an employee at Canoas Elementary School. I'm working for the first week. It's going okay, a little hectic with the schedule, but we're doing okay. And our biggest struggle was to find, we're still struggling, trying to find after school care for my 18-year-old. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm not the only one with an 18-year-old who doesn't feel comfortable enough to leave by himself. And I really had to push to get the right answers. Okay, where do other parents leave their kids at 1:30 in the afternoon?
Right.
Do they all leave their jobs?
Yeah.
What happens to them?
And where did you find resources for that?
Well, we found a place in Mission Bay, but
Okay.
it's a lot of pulling and finding out how to make it work, because, driving out there and coming back is kind of a struggle, but we're making it work, and we're still getting our paperwork in and all that stuff, but I've had to juggle with sitters to stay with my son for an hour until I get home from work.
Right.
It's a struggle trying to find care for your kids while you're still at work.
And Mission Bay has been really good about showing up at the resource fair at Parents Helping Parents, along with.
We actually haven't tried them yet because we're still getting the initial paperwork in.
But I was just going to say, Parents Helping Parents has a few daycare groups that you could call if they fall through for some reason. There are other options too in the area.
It's not exact fit, but
Right.
I think it'll do okay.
Good.
Okay. It's a little loose end, but we'll make it work.
Thank you.
Sure.
Veronica Lala.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Employee of San Jose Unified, and I'm here to get a better understanding of what are the needs of families, so that we can also make resources and share with families.
All right.
Seth Verdi, Director of Special Education here at the district, so professional, and hoping that this is a forum where we can engage meaningfully with each other, and I can answer questions that you have, we can answer questions that you have about special education in the district. We can learn from all of you, and we can meaningfully engage to further the vision that we have as a district for our students with disabilities.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Erin Siebert. I am a professional at San Jose State University. No kids. But I am a community member. And my big goal is to sort of bridge the gap between what the letter of the law is and we espouse in the classroom and campus, where I teach adaptive and general physical educators and pre-OTs and PTs. And then sort of where the rubber meets the road and how it plays out in the community district.
You're at a great place here. Yes.
I'm Michelle Renito, principal at Terrell Elementary, San Jose Unified employee, and I also want to better understand special education. We're seeing an increase and special ed students at our site, so I want to be able to not only educate the students, but better communicate with families.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Wall. I'm with the Inclusion Collaborative, and I'm just here to support and promote inclusion, and you guys invited me. Happy
Thank
first of the
you.
year.
I'm so excited that you're at our first meeting.
Peter Alvarez, I'm a parent of 2 kids in the district. I'm hoping to just kind of stay up to date on what's going on in the district and special ed, and kind of have the open communication lines.
Thank you. Do you want to?
So, Liam Offagood, Executive Director, Santa Clara County SELPA. I'm a professional. I'm hoping to be able to get input and support from CAC this year in finalizing the local plans we submitted back to CAC. That's my hope.
Yes. I'm happy to hear that.
Mi nombre es Rafael López.
I want to hear your words, but I feel like if we go too long, we won't get all your words.
So the problem right now is I don't feel confidence in the district. I don't trust the district anymore because whenever I want to express myself, for some reason they told me they don't allow me to express myself, and it's my right. Even during the IEP meeting of my son, the district lawyer told one of the teachers who were explaining to me several very important things for me that to please be quiet and interrupt her. So I don't feel trust. I don't feel that it's good to be hiring lawyers instead of teachers. I feel that the students are not served enough. I know several students in 6th and 7th grade that they cannot read like my son. And sometimes these are very urgent things. For example, right now in my case, I haven't been able to talk to the principal, to the teachers. They told me that in 48 hours they will call me back, but nothing has happened. And this is urgent because he needs to go back to the school and he doesn't feel comfortable.
Okay. So I'm going to ask that you talk with Seth. I remember you from Sacramento. I would imagine Brian remembers you from Sacramento because Brian and I were there, right? And I know that you and I tried to meet afterwards, but we couldn't align it with a translator, right? So if you, Seth is our special ed director, and he could best get the rest of the information from you and start that conversation to be more effective. Because I think your frustration is you've had a lot of conversation, but you're not seeing some effect. And so let's get you to that point, okay?
Can I just say thank you for being such a loving and accepting father?
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you for your patience. That was an important conversation. It was important. I mean, that's part of why we set up the system, but you understand, I think we've all been in a position with passion where we've been in those shoes. Yeah? Okay. So Leanne? Yeah. Thank you. Amen.
Several times.
Yes.
My name is Leanne Carrazzo. I am a professional autistic para at Little Glen High School. I've been employed with the district 17 years in doing autism. I'm also one of the founding members of the CAC. So I've had a lot of history, and I hope that we continue to kind of forge a better bond and communication between parents, teachers, professionals, outside people, and really try to embrace our kids as well as getting them the services that they need and transparency. You know, there should be no secrets.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Alan Leibovich. I'm a parent, also married to a district employee. Same 2 kids, Pioneer High School and newly moved to the ACE. Also serve on the County Commission for Social Services. And I I guess my hope for the CAC is to kind of continue what we've been building on, actual collaboration between parents, staff, community members, and board members. I think we've made a lot of progress, and rather than an adversarial relationship, I do feel like we're starting to advocate together for the students.
What a beautiful comment, Alan. Thank you.
My name is Christine Maciel, and I'm a parent in the district of 2 kids, one on the autism spectrum, one with dyslexia. And I also was a former member of the vice chair for Community Advisory Committee. And I work in the community, so I'm on the Human Services Commission for the City of San Jose, and I'm working on juvenile justice involving youth with disabilities, and I recently had a charter approved provisionally at the county to be the first intentionally inclusive school. And what do I hope from CACSE? Well, you might imagine I get a lot of calls from parents, and I always say that the best place for them to start is to find their community and to try to work with other parents in the district as much as possible. So I feel like I've come to a place where I can come more often and feel like I'm okay here again. So
Always
I'm happy
welcome.
to be here and to be able to support the district and families to stay in the district.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, a lot of the comments of what you're asking for is to... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I've almost missed a couple. I'm so sorry. So important.
Hi, my name is Kristen Boyd, and I'm a parent. I'm also a member of CACSE. I'm also a professional, but not at the district. I teach at San Jose State and De Anza Community College. So a lot of what I learn about special education here gets right into my classrooms. Probably not my number one goal is I want this room to be filled with more people. More families need to know about CACSE, and more people who don't have special education as part of their lives need to know about CACSE and what we do here.
All right. I saw a few nodding heads with that. Thank you.
I'm Sue Pavlik. I'm a parent in the district. I've had kids in the district for 15 years now. My hope for the CACSE is that we can really come to an agreement on what our task is and move forward with that work.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, you slipped in. I'm sorry.
Yes, Jessica Painter. I'm a parent. I have a second grader who is on the autism spectrum at Willow Glen Elementary, and a daughter who's 6 years old. She's in first grade. What do I hope from CACSE? Just to keep doing a great job and keeping me informed of what's going on.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So it sounds like the majority of these comments all push towards helping us all be better advocates and collaborating, and all for these wonderful kids. Okay. Where am I at my notes? I'm just going to backpedal a little bit in my notes. So we have had a little change in our officers. We lost one last year. And I needed to shuffle around a couple officer seats. According to our bylaws, let's see. According to our bylaws, I could state someone for the remainder of their term. But I'm looking at the way our officers are set up, because we had a complete wash of all officers coming into when Sue became chair and I vice chair, and our parliamentarian. So that was 3 years ago, and we're all on the same cycle, and that's probably not the most effective way to go forward. So my proposal, even though it's after April when we say we have May elections, is to consider having people go for the 3 positions that we're juggling with right now, and then their terms would then offset the terms of 2 other officers. So we'd have 3 officers voted in 1 year, 2 officers the next, alternating like that. Or we could have them all every 2 years. So I would like to know from our members who is open to having us vote in 3 new officers a little late this year and having them stagger. Okay. Who would rather we keep it as it is? I instate a few people and they finish terms in every 2 years at the same 5 officers' positions. Wow, it wasn't just me. Thank you. Okay, so then at our next meeting then, our next meeting is until October. Diana was willing to be parliamentarian again, but she's happy if someone wants to take over parliamentarian.
Sure.
Or do you want to keep on keeping on? It's her second term, so.
I just feel that if somebody wants to do this,
okay.
Yay.
Okay, so are you willing for your name to be in the hat for parliamentarian?
Sure.
Okay. Pedro, I talked to you about treasurer. Is it something you'd consider for doing for a 2-year term instead of just finishing up with a 1-year term? Sure. Okay. So if anyone else wants to be treasurer, we'll throw your name into the hat. You could. Okay. So Kristen, last minute here, we asked you if you could do secretary for the remainder of the year, but this would be adding on another year. So
I will say yes, one day at a time.
One day. So I'll ask you tomorrow, it might change. Very well. Okay, so those are the positions of parliamentarian, treasurer, and secretary. We have at least 1 candidate for all of those. If anyone else is interested in any of those seats to run against, then please let me know before October, so when we do our voting, I have you on the ballot. Yes?
So, I don't know anything about how you become a member. Do you have to be a member? Do you become a member if you volunteer?
Right. So you do need to be a member to be an officer. To become a member, you're making a meeting. That's the first step. The second step is filling out the form. Our membership committee approves it, sends it to the board approves it, and then you become a member. Okay, so we had a little bit of a snag where I got applications over the summer, people that have already attended meetings, but I had to wait until we were together to talk to the membership committee to say, can this go in front of the board? So summer's a little tricky, the rest of the year is easy. Okay, so afterwards just let me know and I could forward an email a form to you. Okay? Yes, Sandra.
For those that are new members to the CACSE, do you have job descriptions for parliamentarian, treasurer, secretary?
Absolutely, it is in our bylaws, and actually
signing up for.
I'm wondering if oops. Okay, sorry, I have to ask something to remind me later. Let's see, no, I didn't put it in there. So yes, I do, they're in our bylaws. Can I just turn it to the page for you to?
Well, so I think, I wanted to just say that I think everybody needs to know. So can everybody just briefly describe what it is that they actually do in 30 seconds or less?
Okay, well, we don't.
Why don't you just have her read it out of the bylaw so it's right?
Diana, what's your job? Diana, what's your job? Just what's your job?
So I'm the parliamentarian and I just make sure that we that we follow the bylaws that we have and we go by Robert's Rule of Order and that we're not too far off task.
Okay,
so just to know the bylaws and know Robert's Rule of Order.
Exactly. So that's in our bylaws, it says a parliamentarian retain a copy of Robert's Rules of Order, CACSE bylaws, and appropriate legislation at all regular and special meetings, and be prepared to make decisions using the same. So, paraphrase the same, right?
You're looking at her, right?
I'm looking at sorry.
It's for everybody.
Yes. So, treasurer manage funds designated for use by the CACSE, which is alone one of our struggles. So we will just start with getting funds to manage. Secretary, record minutes of all CACSE meetings, keep attendance and guest records, which is the sign-in sheet. Hopefully you all signed in because I love to know who's here. Receive and transmit CAC SE correspondence and materials to and from the members, including notification of meetings and copy of the minutes of each meeting. Vice Chair assumes the, you're going to finish your term? I don't have to. Will we keep you the rest of this year? Okay, very well. But just so you know, Vice Chair assumed the duties of the Chair in his or her absence, keep accurate records of each voting member's term of service, and serve as an ex officio member of all subcommittees. And the Chair, I preside at all regular and special meetings of the CACSE, serve as the CASE spokesperson to the local education areas, develop each meeting agenda, and transmit to the LEAs for posting, and serve as an ex officio member of all subcommittees. So I just don't do anything. Okay? So, but if you want to read those, I'll leave it open to that page here. Okay.
Is there a link to our bylaws on the district's CACSE page?
No, there's not yet a link on our district's CACSE page. I can put a link on our webpage, and then I'll work with Seth on getting that in, because he could do that for us. Okay, so thank you for that little segue there, but it was important business.
Do we need a motion to approve that?
Oh, yes. So then I do. Because that will be an action for something to put in action for the next meeting and put into the agenda the next meeting. We need a motion to have a voting of the officer's position for parliamentarian, treasurer, and secretary at the October meeting.
So I'll read the first one that says that since I'm parliamentarian.
Thank you. So Diana
Lane.
Are you going to put it down a second, or since you did a motion?
All right, I'll do Marua's motion and I'll second.
All right, thank you.
And we already voted, so we're good.
Yes, yes, covering all bases, maybe a little backwards. Okay.
We open up our meetings to the public and invite anyone to share any comments. Please consider keeping your comments within 2 minutes, and raise your hand if you have a comment you wish to share. Yes, Kristen.
Hi, my name is Kristen Boyd, and I have been a member for at least a year, and I am still not getting robocalls from the district about CACSE meetings.
Thank you.
And I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
I have a comment to back that one up.
Not everybody get it.
Not that's the comment everyone's getting. Yes, Lee.
So I got one Thursday at 1 a.m.
Oh.
In Spanish.
And not in English.
No, then it was Spanish first, and then it went to English. So maybe we could look into the timing of the robocalls. I haven't had my phone on. I don't answer phones at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Good for you.
And it went to my voicemail. But her family's dad lacking sleep to begin with, special needs love bugs, and then getting a call at 1 o'clock in the morning if they didn't turn their phones off.
Right.
It was myself, but.
So did anybody else have an issue with the robocalls this round? And we'll just.
Only that transportation was mentioned in the Spanish.
And not the English?
And not in the English version.
But I also heard the address in the Spanish, but I didn't remember hearing it in the English, but it wasn't like I had it recorded to play back. So.
I have one. You can listen to it.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
I just
Well,
couldn't figure out why the district was
so
calling
new
me.
office staff, and it'll be great for them to have this constructive response to this first try at the robo calls. Thank you very much. Okay. I have one coming up at this. Where's my phone? At the on the agenda for the board meeting this Thursday are a couple of policies. One of them is a policy on restraint and seclusion. It still includes the prone hold. Those of you that know my story, I had a son in a prone hold. I've seen how this impacts someone who has survived it, thank God. But last November, a child died in prone restraint. And so I think it is important that it's not just my voice speaking against this policy. So this Thursday evening, if you are available, if you are feeling the same way, if you want further information, I will send you further information. I have lots of documentation about prone restraint. Let me know, okay? Thank you. Anyone else?
The state council does have a position, of course, against it. It supports AB 216.
Yes.
And David does plan to be at the meeting, the board meeting on Thursday.
Thank you. So AB 216, the language got pulled. Do we know why?
I don't know.
So Weber pulled it, and I haven't heard back from her office as to why. I was hoping you knew.
No.
But I love the language of AB 216 as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was just an extra boost to the previous bill.
Yes.
Right, last year.
Yeah. So AB 216 is a stop bill. It puts in a lot of the language that was taken away from restraint and seclusion, and some of these issues, like prone restraint being pulled, being banned, is written into it, and also the long arm reach, so that these restrictions we're putting on some of the restraints and seclusions follows our students that might be put into a non-public setting outside of state. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had something to say. Yes, you're always welcome to move around as needed. Okay, any other public comments?
Okay. Move on to announcements and reports. We invite representatives of the district and the county to share updates. We have family engagement. Veronica?
I have brought flyers to say the dates. I put them on the front for Family University, our first Family University at Hoover Middle from 10 to 3:30 on November 23rd. We're going to focus on leadership. That means giving families sharing information about processes, how to advocate for the children. We're in communication with SED, where we're going to discuss IEP process. I invite you to join us on that day. There's babysitting, childcare. We also provide lunch and just some giveaways and a lot of information. We're also going to look into the parent portal. So that's one. So I have 3 dates here. Just pick up the flyer. We also will be having college aspirations, which is a workshop, 3 workshops, a series of 3 here at the district office from 6 to 8. The first one will be October 9th. We're looking at how do we start having that conversation with our elementary students, and what types of supports what can we do even starting from kindergarten, just to have that conversation with them. Same thing, childcare and transportation will be provided, as well as snacks from 6 to 8.
So this Wednesday is a meeting.
Thank you. Yes, this Wednesday we also have a leadership training where we're going to be just giving families an overview of the different committees, schools like council, CELAC, CACSE, VIP. So we invite you. I believe you also received the parent link. You'll receive an email. We're providing childcare as well,
Get that roll call.
transportation and snacks.
I said I did get that roll call.
Oh, good.
6 to 8 this coming Wednesday. Thank you.
So this could be a busy week of evening events for all of us. Thank you. Okay, sorry, Rebecca.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
Leo, do you have anything to share?
I'll just mention what I mentioned during the introduction, the local plan. So I haven't seen what CDE has released in terms of template for the local plan, but I know there are due dates that are coming. I think July 30th, 2020, which is the end of the school year. SELPAs are required to submit a local plan to CDE, and as most of you would know, there's a process for that. We have to have a committee of teachers, special education, general education teachers, CAC members, administrators to look at the local plan, to review the local plan, align it with CDE's template. So SELPA did not create this template, it's CDE who pieced together the template based on feedback from the field. I don't know what the template looks like, so don't ask yet. But we are going to plan some series of meetings, and CAC has to send at least 1 rep, because after the committee is done, towards the tail end of the local plan, we have to give it back to CAC for input, and then of course there are additional layers of approval after that as well. So anyway, I wanted to let you know, I don't have a template, I wish I did. That way I can start working on it. There are 5 SELPAs within my office, so I have to do all of those local plans. It has to go through each of the boards of each district, so it's going to be a ton of work this year. San Jose Unified is one SELPA with SECOE and SELPA IV. Good times coming for me. So anyway, there is my update. Most of my time this year will be on the local plan. Yes, ma'am. Sure.
So is SELPA getting away from each individual SELPA having the same local plan?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that each SELPA has its own structure. No, in the sense that we all have to use CPC. So in terms of the structure.
Before, how many years ago was that, when all of a sudden we
2006?
all had, every SELPA had the exact same plan?
Yeah.
And it was talked about that it was necessary as recently as 2 years ago.
There's a.
So it's now it's.
It doesn't have to be the same.
But I'm just saying it has been in the
Yeah.
past. So it kind of seems to me that because each SELPA is going to have their own committee, that they're going to be a little bit more individual.
There's going to be individualization of the local plan. The task that COE, not CDE, COE has to do is to make sure that those local plans are aligned, because you cannot have local plans that are competing or have different systems in place that will not be aligned with the other SELPAs. So there has to be alignment of the local plan, of each local plan within the county. So maybe, I don't know what the reasoning is before, I wasn't here, but COE's task is to make sure that all local plans are aligned, I'm not saying the same, aligned to make sure that they can be implemented.
Seems to me
without
like a
conflict.
better way of doing it than.
That's the hope.
Perfect.
That's the hope. And so for those of us that don't speak acronyms, COC is the County Office of Education, and CDE is the California Department of Education. And this is in reaction to legislature that was passed last year, indicating that starting this year, the review of the local plan needs to be every 3 years, regular review of the community, which includes the Community Advisory Committee. So this is our first year. We'll first see the outline when CD gets it out. I'm excited. That's great news, Leo. Thank you. I know it's like overwhelming until we have it, right?
Until we have it, we don't know what it looks like, we don't. But I think it's a reaction to making sure that we are aligned with the LCAP, and also to make sure that that we are consistent with our practices in terms of transparency, in terms of being able to show that the local plan is still here to stay, and it's not just a piece of paper that we complete and check.
Thank you. I think you might need a huge vacation when that's done.
I'll take a 1 year sabbatical.
1 year? Wait.
1 year.
Okay.
District report?
Yeah, just very briefly, Kristen already mentioned that we have a board meeting this Thursday, and just as a kind of a follow-up on the whole, how do I become a member? We have 5 names that will come before us in consent. Michelle Repito, my phone just went to sleep. Emily McGinnis, that's one's a little sketchy. Pedro Alvarez, Diana Lane, and Alana Calloway Wilson, and I don't think I'm speaking too much out of turn to say that I am going to vote in favor.
Well, thank you.
If there are some that are not on that list that need to be, can we still sneak that in, or?
So
you
that
just went above my pay grade. Does it have
so
to wait
to
till the
answer
next
that,
board meeting?
because I already asked, because I received another one today. But it was someone I hadn't yet met to go through our membership process. So they will need to wait for the next. They will need to wait for the next meeting.
September 12th, I think.
Yeah. So we'll take them. We'll take those applications, but they won't be in front of the board until September. But that's before our October meeting. So they'll be members in time for our next meeting. Okay? Any other questions? Fantastic. Okay.
Did he say all the names that are in my brain that would want to become members?
5, including you, Pedro.
And I mentioned
So
something
just
about.
to let you know, I'm on the list because mine fell off. I fell off.
Somehow.
I fell down.
We had it in our notes. She was a member, and we weren't finding it in the board notes. So we don't know.
Well, I'm glad we're fixing it.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
If you're wondering how I'm a parliamentarian and not a member.
Good point.
Come on. Okay, whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay, so it's still an announcement. Oh, it's at the bottom. Okay. CCSC subcommittees. We'll start with whoops. Yes. Education programs. Well, those are on our. I forgot to pick up one. Those are on our plan of the education events coming up. Thank you. May I borrow yours, Diana? So if you've taken an opportunity to grab one of our plans, you'll notice that we alternate the information we are sharing between the district and between requests from the parents, and those are listed as community education events. The community education events that we'll be organizing is a self-advocacy and the how, when to explain to a child's disability to them. I think we've all had struggles with this. If we have a child with a disability, that will be on November 4th. December 16th, it's autism in the classroom, and I think we're going to do that with a 3-person panel because there was a request for the ABA to be understood, and then we also need to hear from a teacher. So I think we'll do a small panel for that one because a lot of to really encompass what I hear parents asking out of that, I think we'll need more than one person presenting. And then on March 23rd, addressing behavior. A lot of our presentations this year seem to center around working with our students. So our district is presenting tonight. We're going to get a good overview if I hurry up and shut up soon. Programs and services are kind of going to be started tonight, and maybe we'll wrap it up in more detail in October. And then district presentation in January, mental health, February, support and discipline, and in April we'll be doing the LCAP. We might have to start doing a certain template from CDE on the local plan that night too. I don't know. We'll find out from Leo when we get it. And then May 18th, we vote on new officers, but now it'll be 2 instead of 5. So thank you very much for that tonight. Okay.
Legislative, student ID cards for students in grades 7 through 12 now have the national crisis lines in accordance to SB 972. Portantino. I do feel that it would have better supported the students if we also included the crisis text line and also the Spanish crisis support line, but I'm happy with what we have. That is a
Great start.
Great start, yes. And continuing from last year, we hope that the district will allow us to help in the engagement of stakeholders during the development and implementation of the updated suicide policy in accordance with AB 2246 O'Donnell. And Erin? Yes?
I just wanted to share that Bret Hart, John Muir, and Castellera all use the same template for our ID cards, and we issued them 6 through 8, and they have the text.
Oh, they do? Okay, so maybe Pioneer.
I'll look at Julian's. I didn't notice.
An outlier.
I looked at one sentence and not the other, so I didn't see it on one. I'll be able to validate that too tonight.
Okay,
Do
well,
they have one for
Pioneer
Spanish also?
only has.
Currently, it's only in English, but I can look at definitely updating that.
Yes,
I think that would be an important consideration.
Yes.
Erin, we were wondering if you had any news from the national level, since you seem to be well tooled.
We weren't in DC when we meet this summer. We met in South Carolina instead, and so the word was there was no news. So it's still a sit and wait pattern, as we've sort of talked about before. Again, the best way to advocate for any language you want on the idea of reauthorization is to most likely work with your state institutions, organizations. For example, I belong to CAFERD, the California Alliance of Physical Education, Health, Recreation, and Dance Teachers. We have a lobbyist devoted to lobbying at the California level and in DC. That's above my pay grade for what I can handle, but if there's a specific issue that you feel needs attention, for example, restraints or something written into that, there's most likely a state org that has a lobbyist that they work with.
Okay.
That is your way to get stuff onto that bill. Because again, it's gonna happen with staff that write it up. It's not gonna be your senators or your congressmen. And once it's going, it's gonna go fast. Again, the game plan is still keep it off Trump's radar. Full disclosure, I'm liberal, but you can't control them, just don't put it in front of them, just distract them. That's the goal with that. We'll see.
I'm all for it.
Squirrel.
Yes. Squirrel. Squirrel. Do you have anything from the State Council of Developmental Disability on a national level or
There's a
state level?
legislative committee as part of the headquarters in Sacramento.
Okay.
And so they do some of that. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's something we can bring up.
Wonderful. Okay, that's always good to know.
The only other thing I had for you, and it kind of goes to your mental health piece, is recently in the news there's been quite a lot of blurb about technology and mental health. And there was a big study that circulated that sort of said, teens with phones are more depressed. And that was completely correlation based. That wasn't a causation study. And so there's some stuff trickling out now that's saying teens with glasses, that affects their mental health state, has better prediction and variance than their cell phone usage.
Interesting.
Because it was just a correlational thing. So it might be the kiddos that are depressed.
Spend more time on the
But
social
that
media.
factored more into the prediction equation than cell phone usage. So it could be that kiddos that are depressed are using their cell phones more because they get support from it. So I know that's a fine line. A lot of parents and teachers walk with technology, and some people are like, well, technology is the devil and everything like that. But there might be a happy medium there. And so if mental health is circulating, we're focusing on that. I know technology is always a big thing. So be careful when you're reading literature as it comes out. Make sure you fully understand what they're saying, and not sometimes with the news reports the article said, that's not always right.
Thank you.
There are some there's at least one local provider who's actually using computers and technology as part of the treatment plans.
Oh, okay. Good. So along with the legislative team, I just wanted to say you'll notice on our plan for this year that we plan to do a coffee at some point to talk about the legislative process and how you can take your advocacy up to a whole nother level. But we are trying to coordinate that with some pretty serious guests. So I'm waiting to hear back from Senator Bell's office on when he's free, and then I'm going to line up the rest of our serious guests. Because if I can get Senator Bell, I'm really happy to have him at one of our meetings. Okay. Local plan and policy review. Well, we kind of heard about local plan.
Should we skip the rest of the subcommittees?
Yeah, I think given that the rest of the subcommittees haven't had too much of a chance, we're going to wait in interest of time, because I'm really behind myself now, right?
So I make a motion that we move on with the agenda.
Yeah, thank you.
So we can.
So Diana has made a motion to move on with the agenda. Sandra Asher has seconded. Thank you. There is
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed?
We'll continue this next.
We'll talk more in depth at the next one. So I forgot that there is a SELPA meeting on August 22nd at 9 a.m. I show as
That's a rep council meeting.
okay.
It's not executive council.
Okay.
It's a rep.
Okay.
Is it public?
Is that a public meeting?
It is public.
Okay.
So where?
So the agenda for that is actually outside on the other doors if you want to look at it. It will be at the Santa Clara County Office of Education at 1290 Ritter Park in the Resource Center Room 2, starting at 9 a.m. Okay? The date of that is August 22nd, which is Thursday. Yes. In the calendar in my head, it's Thursday. Check your calendar, I could be wrong. Okay. All right. Oh, but I'm not going to back up. Okay.
Can't now.
Yep. So we just heard from our subcommittees. We ask each year, if you have interest in subcommittees, that we ask people to please consider participating in our subcommittees. I've put up all 5 up there: the education program, membership, legislative, publicity, and local plan and policy, which sounds like it will be a hot one this year because we have much to do about a lot. So, I already did that one, sorry. Okay. So this CAC shall have standing subcommittees and may create any special subcommittee it deems necessary for the achievement of its purpose and objectives. The standing committee shall be local plan and policy review subcommittee. They will receive input from the community regarding the local plan for special education. Remember, this is a new templated form from the CDE we're on pause on until we get it. Work in cooperation with an appropriate member of the SELPA, and we've all had the great opportunity to meet Leo here tonight, to review the local plan, make recommendations to the CACSE regarding the local plan. Yes?
These are all in the bylaws.
They are in the bylaws?
Right.
Yes, but I'm asking people to sign up tonight, which is why I'm reading through them. Do you want me to read through them or just have a moment of silence and let you read through them? Moment of silence? My voice is getting tired. I appreciate that.
Everybody can see them on the projector.
You don't have to be a member to participate in the subcommittee meetings, correct?
Thank you. Yes, Sue's reminding me you do not have to be a member to participate in the subcommittee. If you're not a member but wish to participate in the subcommittee, we are happy to work with you. You do not have to have membership to be in a subcommittee. Has everyone read this one? I may move on.
Maybe we can just read them out loud while people go up to the, okay, I can do that.
Actually, I have pens
for that. Okay. Ooh, I kept a red one. Ooh,
maybe someone wants to be
lovely.
So Rebecca has pens if anyone is interested in signing up. I put up last year's. We've lost Fran, is the only person that is not coming back, but I think everyone else is in.
So memberships and publicity are 2 separate committees?
Yes. I don't think I.
Say that again. Membership. Yes.
I'll just put an X next to my name.
Yes. If you're staying, put a check next to your name. If you're staying on a subcommittee you're on, Aaron, would you like to stay on our legislative team? Yeah. Rebecca, if Aaron is listed, okay. So just put a check next to your name. Aaron, well, get busy, lady.
I know, what happened?
Okay, the last subcommittee is the legislative subcommittee. And Rebecca and I have been, we both attended the SELPA Legislative Day in Sacramento the last 2 years. Leo is eager to have fresh blood there. It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to meet other CAC leaders, and there's always a wonderful speaker, and you get to go around and meet some of our assembly members and senators, or at least their staff. And it's an opportunity to say a few things in support of SELPA, but also if you have an individual issue that you wish to bring to their attention, it's an opportunity to do that as well. Okay? All right. I love how everyone jumped up at once to put their names on paper. All right. Thank you. Okay. So thank you. I see a few new names up there. I appreciate that. Thanks for adding your names to our subcommittees. We look forward to engaging you with these groups. We're going to move on to Seth's presentation if you're ready, Seth. Ready-ish? We're going to escape out of this.
So we're adjourning this meeting?
No.
Wait. What about the review of the bylaws, blah, blah, blah part? Did that get?
That was the.
That was right here with the membership. That was the highlight of the bylaws. I'm sorry, the subcommittees. I'm not speaking what I mean to say. Okay, so I'm excited to welcome Seth Reddy back as our Special Education Director. This became official in July. We know that there have been a lot of changes affecting the delivery of special education services in the district. Seth is going to present an overview, and then if you have questions, he'll hopefully have the time to answer some of them. Please welcome Seth Reddy, Special Education Director for San Jose Unified School District.
Oh.
And did I give you back your
Thank
clicker?
you. Yes, I got it right here. All right, let me just switch over the presentation. Yeah, no problem. All right, so welcome everybody. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back for another school year. As Kristen said, thank you for the introduction. Seth Reddy. I'm looking forward to working with all of you this year. This is great attendance for the first meeting of the year. I hope we can keep it up and maybe add to it. I'm excited we have some of our site principals here with us and assistant principals because they offer a great perspective. So I'm going to keep my presentation pretty short because I'm sure, as I learned last year, there's a lot of questions. Don't want to repeat how long we went. But I'm just going to give you a brief overview of special education here and some of our focus areas for this year. And as we go through, please just raise your hand and we can ask questions during the presentation. That'll probably be more relevant. And hopefully I can get you what you want and we can tap into some of the expertise that we have around the room. So, start. Does anyone know what San Jose Unified's vision is? Stephen can't answer.
He was jumping up at that moment.
But he's marking down the bonus points.
Shut him down.
I answered last time and got accused of drinking the Kool-Aid.
By who?
What? Remember that?
Anybody?
Oh!
To educate students as 21st century citizens.
Thinkers.
That's the last
That's the
one.
last one.
Here we go.
I told you I'm not going to do it. We need.
All right. So, our vision for all of our students, including our students with disabilities, is to prepare today's students to be the thinkers, leaders, and creators of tomorrow. And so why do you think we have a vision statement as a school district, or why would any organization have a vision statement?
So you know where they stand.
Yeah, so we signal our values, keep the conversations that we have and the decisions we make focused. Yeah, exactly. I think that's pretty comprehensive, actually. That hits on the two main points. So there are three things that the Department of Special Education is going to focus on this year to support this vision. There's a lot of other things that happen throughout the school year, but I'm going to highlight the three things that we're most focused on. I know we saw a little bit of this preview for the film about student behaviors, and so there's a lot of work going on in that. You won't see it reflected in one of these three focus areas because our student services team is focusing on it a lot. We're doing a lot of stuff within it, but these are the three things that we're going to focus on for this school year to support this vision for our students with special needs. So those three things are to conduct high quality, comprehensive, and compliant assessments for our students. And so that takes several forms. For those of you that have been through the special education process, you've probably experienced being in an IEP where a school psychologist presents a report that they've done, a psychoeducational report that includes up to a range of different assessments that they use to determine your student's eligibility for special education services. It may be the academic assessment that the case manager or that the teacher does for a student's triennial or initial evaluation. So we use something called the WIAT here. It's a measure of academic achievement. Or something like Ms. Lane here does, which is a speech and language assessment. All of those things we want to be high quality, comprehensive, and compliant. And so we're going to do several things. We've actually already started this. We're going to do a few more things throughout the year to support this. Number one is our professional developments for our school psychologists and our speech and language pathologists, who are the ones who are doing the bulk of these assessments, is going to focus on supporting this. So I think a lot of times it might fall into that third bucket, compliant, where you have lawyers talking about reports. We're really going to try to stay away from that and really focus on what a high quality assessment means for a student's educational progress and how it supports the educational experience that they go through. And so we've had some success with peer review of assessment reports and providing feedback. We'll bring in outside experts to give professional developments on particular kinds of assessments. We'll give trainings on particular kinds of assessments. And we'll really focus a lot of our professional development around that. Another thing that we've done is we have teachers that are new, both to the district and also some to California, who've moved from out of state. So we spent a whole day of our new teacher orientation focused on training for academic assessments, for the academic assessment that we use here. And we have a coach on staff, a special education coach, who's following up with them, having them observe other people administer the assessment to ensure that when they hit the first initial that they have to do, or they hit the first triennial IEP that they have to do an evaluation for, that they're ready to go and they feel very prepared and confident in their skills to give an assessment. Second area of focus is to use those assessments, among other things, to create high quality and comprehensive IEPs for our students. And again, this is less about the paperwork of the IEP and more about what does this IEP do to guide the student's education. How are the goals related to the student's present levels, and what is the plan for that student to achieve those goals? Making sure that we align the services that we offer with the concerns that have been expressed by the team and the deficiencies or the gaps that have been identified by our standardized assessments. And so this takes a lot of forms as well, but a lot of it is working with our case managers, our school psychologists, and our speech language pathologists to focus on what does a high quality and comprehensive IEP look like? What are the essential characteristics of that? And providing professional development tailored to that. So for example, I referenced the new teacher orientation. We spent a day on assessments. We also spent half of a day with one of the experts from our staff on developing goals and going through different scenarios, having them look at IEPs that they've written in the past and critiquing themselves on what is this goal? Does it have the characteristics that we here at San Jose Unified feel are essential to a student's IEP goal? The other thing that we've also done too, just to highlight, is our administrators in the room know we have an administrator retreat. So we had a working lunch with our administrators. Each department sort of gave them a bunch of information throughout the day. We spent that doing a case study on an IEP and having them come from the perspective of a principal who's sitting in the IEP as what we call the LEA representative, the person who can direct services to a student. To really focus on listening during the IEP, looking for particular things that may surface, and then aligning our services and our IEPs to meet those students' needs. And the last one is to hold our IEP meetings on time to demonstrate to those of you that have students receiving special education services, but also to the student that we value them and their students. And so if you're new to special education, you might not be familiar, but if you've been around, there are a lot of timelines that the state uses to govern when we have to hold IEP meetings, when we have to meet certain deadlines. And so, big kudos to Emily here and the team last year. But through last school year, we had 0 IEPs that were what the state calls late without cause, which means that we messed up and didn't hold the IEP on time. So that's fantastic for a district our size. There are other late IEPs, certainly, and the state allows us to categorize certain ones as being late for particular reasons. But the category that's late without cause, we had 0, and we're going to repeat that this year. And a lot of that just focuses on communication, making sure the site leaders are aware of which IEPs are due, when they're due, and then also working with our case managers to help give them some skills to calendar things out at the start of the year. Another big thing with that is we just made a big push to hire as many school psychologists as we can, because they're integral in the process. And if you are lacking in school psychologists, sometimes it can take longer to complete the necessary assessments for an IEP. So we've staffed as much as we possibly can for school psychologists to help mitigate against that.
What are some of the reasons that an IEP could go over that?
Yeah, so it could be that we schedule a time, we send out a notice of meeting, everything's ready, and a parent has an emergency and can't attend. And then when we do hold it, it's after the deadline that the state has given. That's like probably the most obvious example of it.
Is that considered without cause?
It's not, no.
I think it's important for us as parents to know also that a ruling just came out that families can use Family Medical Leave Act hours for their IEP meetings, for their kids' IEP meetings.
Yes, I know, like, my son's triennial was late last year.
Yeah.
So it must have had a justifiable reason for it to be
Yeah,
late.
it must have, yes. I don't know for sure. But Or I don't know
I'm
specific, I don't know
just wondering,
specifically, but
because
yes.
if there's zero, that's,
Yeah.
okay, sounds good.
It just means there was a cause. He said without cause.
No, I know, that's what I was asking, what the cause was.
So if so I've had a triennial without the, psychological assessment, and so they're rescheduling the psychological assessment, but it still shows us as having the meeting then?
Yeah, that would be correct. Although, you know, I don't know the specific situation, that would not be something we would encourage without the parents' consent for that to happen because of other factors.
So if it has to be put on hold because there isn't a psychologist or somebody to do the assessments, then that is a okay reason for it to be late.
Only if the parent consented and then IEP meeting was held to update goals, for example, or to discuss another concern. But typically we wouldn't encourage that.
Okay.
I'm thinking from the vibe in the room, I love this statistic, but I'd love to see it completed on time without cause, and then the other factors as well. I think that's probably where a lot of these questions are going.
Yeah.
But I do think that's great.
Yeah.
That was zero without.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I can definitely do that.
Seth, can I just mention that
I'm gonna
a
grab my
lot
water
of the
bottle.
trigger for these late reasons for late IEPs has been what's going on in California when we had the fires, when we had school closures. So CDE, their compassionate side, realized that we have districts that need school closure and they cannot be held accountable and be marked as non-compliant when there is a disaster in the area. So in the past, CDE would say, no, you're late, you're late. So, but with the additional excuses that CDE has considered and has allowed districts to do, we are able to mark those excuses accordingly as long as they are accurate. So it could be, it was late because there was school closure. Let's say there was a fire at that school. So, and there was a scheduled IEP meeting and there was a fire. So of course, the IEP will not happen, and in that case, the district will not be late. So there are, you know, those are the main triggers for the reasons why CDE has put together a drop-down menu. In the past, there was an other category, and it was nebulous, and people will be creative on putting just other. So CDE has taken away other and just made sure, and I would edit 16,000 files looking at other to make sure that people are not creative on writing other. So now that there's no more other, you know, we are only able to use certain fields on the drop-down menu. Just wanted to.
Yeah. No, you're first.
Where do you get those numbers from?
Yeah, so we have to certify with the state twice a year. So we certified June 30th of this past year, and I'm assuming it's published.
So we're transitioning to CalCACSE this year.
Okay.
So
right.
in prior years, we did December count and June count. So that's gone. So with the CalCACSE dates, which is one coming in
October.
First Wednesday in October. I know that I'm certifying discipline data by August 30th, but there's also always that first Wednesday of October. I'm looking at Emily because she has that in
August 30th, first Wednesday in October.
And if there's an interest in understanding more about the state's reporting and compliance, we can certainly do a presentation about it. I don't know how riveting it'll be, but happy to go through it because it is complicated.
Yeah.
So there's a statement just brought up a question. Is prior year's data for that available?
I believe so, yeah. I keep it in from the records we get. I've never actually looked it up publicly, but I imagine that there is some
on the data quest on the CDE's website. Yeah. It does have data that has been submitted by SELPAs, specifically special ed. So it's public. The only time it's not is if there's like 5 or less kids, then they have to mark them to pull them out.
And that's it. I know myself and at least 3 other people I've talked with were asked to open the IEP so that they could be in compliance and not hold it until later.
Yeah, so obviously, we've got a lot of people across the district that we want to sometimes help them change their behavior, so it's definitely something we focus on and don't encourage.
Okay. Do you want another question, or do you wanna move on?
Sure, one more.
So, isn't staffing an issue? I mean, so you said that.
It is sometimes, yeah. I have a slide about staffing.
There's a shortage of people who can do the work that needs to be done.
There is.
And that's kind of seems like an insurmountable task to be compliant when you don't have enough more bodies to do the job.
It can be, but that's the job of all of us, is to find creative solutions to figure those situations out. Yeah, and I do have a staffing slide, we can maybe talk a little bit about it then. Yeah. But yeah, definitely a challenge. Probably the biggest challenge we face in terms of that. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of the state and compliance, there's one other thing I want to mention just because it is going to guide some of our activities this year. And Kristen, you shared a presentation that I'm not sure who did that, so from another district, that you had said, oh, this is like a good way to break down the information. And they had mentioned.
Yes, that was from Santa Clara Unified School District. Okay,
great. So I stole from some of her ideas, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love it.
So there's one other thing that's going to guide our activities this year, and that's something called Performance Indicator Review, or PIR. So there's a lot of different things that happen where the state looks at our data and identifies areas where we need to improve on, where we don't meet certain targets. And then obviously, those are very important for us to focus on and to try to fix. It's good. It's a good check for us. It's a good accountability that the state has for us. So there's something called the Annual Performance Report Measures that are driven by the requirements of the U.S. Department of Education and the Office of Special Education Programs, so driven federally, that the state of California has taken. And there's 17 different indicators.
It's back in. Is the power cord not quite in, or?
No, this slide? Other slide, there we go. Just the one slide was black.
Okay.
So there are certain indicators that undergo a performance indicator review annually. And if you ask detailed questions about this, I'm going to tap Leo because I understand some of it, but probably he understands it in more depth. But basically, the state measures us on these indicators. And there are certain targets that we are assigned to meet that the state has developed for each of these. And so each year, it's identified if we are not meeting the targets in certain particular areas. So I have bolded 2 of the indicators that we did not meet the targets in, that we are going to be focusing on this year. One is indicator 3, specifically participation. So in terms of our statewide assessment, achievement, we met the target, but in participation, we didn't. So what that means is, you're probably familiar, if you have students, of the standardized assessments that they may take. One is the SBAC, is the biggest one. Some students with special education services take another one called the CACSE, the California Alternative Assessment. And we are charged by the state with having 95% of our students participate, and that includes each subgroup. So for example, 95% of our foster youth participate in assessments, 95% of our students with disabilities obviously participate. So we fell just short of that in both math and English this year, around 94% for both. A lot of that was we have some students who are attending non-public schools, and we are required to have those students be assessed as well. So the students that are in our comprehensive school sites in one of our schools, pretty easy to get to. We know them, we know where they are, we have people who have eyes on them. Our students are at non-public schools. It sometimes can be a little more difficult. We have to work with the school there. We send people out. We start prepping very early. We fell a little bit short this year. So we're going to be focusing on that. We have a program specialist who's someone who sits in this office here who deals exclusively with our non-public school partners and our students there. So we've sat down with her, made a lot of strategies for how to front load this so that when assessment season comes in the spring, we're ready to rock. And I have I'm very confident that we will be able to get to the 95% because it really is a matter of just a few students in both of those categories.
I apologize. I've signed my kid out of the statewide assessment since 9th grade because he hasn't been prepared well enough to take them. Okay. So maybe take that back to the table. they need preparation, especially students with special education.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah, does that include non-participants because parents,
Remind me, Emily, if they sign their student out, does that count against us?
It does, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yes.
Opt out.
But it is, you're right.
So
Yes.
if they do opt out, that does.
It does hurt our participation rate. But the idea, the 95% target is meant to say, that 5% you have some wiggle room in terms of opting out. Like, it's unlikely that more than 5% of that particular subgroup's parents are going to opt them out of the assessments. Yeah. The second indicator.
So I just have a question on that decision. Is this ESAT? That's not statewide?
No, that's not one of the statewide assessments.
Is there a way you can measure that though and make sure it happens?
Right.
Yeah, we do.
It didn't happen last year though, and
Yeah.
so it.
Yeah, so
So it would
SDC
be
students
nice if
didn't
it
get to
was,
take it.
I don't think it really was made a big deal, and it's kind of a big deal to parents, so just,
Okay.
since you're talking about assessments,
Yeah.
I'll throw the SAT in.
Yeah, good
And
feedback.
then also college going, that's a great way to promote going to college, actually give kids the SAT.
Yeah, certainly. That's good feedback. The second indicator that we did not meet our target in is in the preschool least restrictive environment. So we are charged for all of our students to serve them in the least restrictive environment possible for them to thrive that is appropriate. And the way the state measures this is in our IEP system, our case managers will input the percentage of time that a preschool student, no? You're shaking your head now?
Okay, that's indicator 5.
Oh,
for
sorry.
this restrictive environment.
Sorry.
For preschool,
It is complicated.
Separate school and then general ed, it's more of gen ed and special ed. It's not a percentage.
Okay.
And a lot of school districts are at a disadvantage for preschool because we don't have a general ed preschool. General ed preschool is not mandated. But for preschoolers but for students with disabilities who are preschoolers, we still have to provide them faith. So I know San Jose Unified has struggled with this, other districts in the county have struggled with this, other districts in the state have struggled with this, but where districts are trying to move forward in creating collaborative partnerships with general education preschool programs to see how some school districts can host these general education preschool programs. That way our students with disabilities in preschool can access the general education program and their peers within the school district.
Yeah.
So it's a huge hurdle, but we're slowly getting there. We're also cleaning up our data.
Yes.
Because a lot of the errors that we've seen for preschool least restrictive environment is checking the wrong box.
Yes.
So, a lot of data cleanup that still needs to be.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I was going to say the two things we're focused on is one, the data cleanup side, because we do realize we're not reporting things accurately as we should be, and we've already seen a jump from because this is actually from the 18-19 school year data, we've seen a jump in where we are vis-a-vis the targets just by ensuring that our data is accurate, like a doubling of the percentage of the target that they want, which is students in the least restrictive environment. The second thing is, as Leo said, we have state preschools that we run on most of our sites where we also have special education preschool classes, so it's formalizing and standardizing the mainstreaming opportunities that are available for those students there, as well as we do have the one preschool inclusion program that is also at Almaden Elementary that we are hoping to use as a pilot to expand in the future.
That answered my next question, so thank you.
Sorry, I didn't
No,
know
it's
you
all
were
good.
ahead. So those two things are important and will also guide some of the activities that we undertake this school year.
So Child Find, I was surprised that what they look for is that obviously you did great with Child Find because the compliance you said was pretty good for everything. And that's all they look at for Child Find, but I remember when you were in data, I came to you and said, so how do I get the information? Because what I see as Child Find is who is identifying the child successfully. And the numbers you got back to me showed that teachers, even though there are not many of them that have initialized an IEP, they were the most successful. So what are we doing to capitalize on that? Because I'm hearing still from teachers that they're being told, you're not qualified, but they are also key
Mhm.
in that they see students who've not yet been identified
Mhm.
in an environment among their peers where where they tend to stand out to
Yeah.
that effect.
Yeah. Let me give an answer, and then maybe I'll have our site principals weigh in a bit, so I'll give you time to prepare if you want.
Okay.
I would say that I think you're right? The teachers that are working with the students have a lot of great knowledge about them. One of the things in IDEA, the law that governs special education, as I'm sure you know, is that we are responsible to provide the student with all of the interventions and supports and accommodations that are available to any general education student. And so for us, what that looks like is what we call our student success team, where we want students to go through the interventions that are also available to our general education students prior to jumping to a special education assessment. And so I don't know about the wording that has been given to particular teachers, but certainly that is, we want to make sure, in terms of what we're charged with under IDEA, to be following that, to not just jump to a special education assessment if a teacher has a concern, to talk about it with the SST team and see if there's interventions that can remedy the concern that they've identified.
It's California code that says you need to do the SST. IDEA says when a parent requests it, you have to do it.
Certainly.
No, when anyone requests.
Certainly, yeah. Certainly we follow the
teacher.
law in terms of an explicit request. I think I was just trying to provide some context for what the communication might have been to teachers, rather than you're not qualified. It's more
It's not
there
that
are
you're
other
not
supports
qualified, it's about
available.
we won't test because we haven't done that, and that's not okay.
Agreed, totally agree, yes. And if a parent requests assessment or a teacher requests assessment, formally, we follow all of the guidelines and protocols that are in place.
And that's not unusual in a lot of school districts.
Yeah.
It's kind of the theme that we see, and we've seen for ages, where teachers, or not necessarily teachers, but the school, but the roadblock of the SST meeting, that we have to do this first, even though a parent might have already made the formal request in the letter for the assessment. And it's great, I mean, SST is a great idea too, but just two things can happen simultaneously, where the assessment timeline starts and 60 days happens and the SST team comes together, might come up with stuff, but at least with the assessment, you're getting that objective, data, and come back with recommendations, and it's not just kind of guesswork.
Yeah.
And it's never been the communication that's come from Lenzen or from our special ed department, from any of our departments. We're really clear on that. If a letter comes in requesting assessment, it goes straight to special ed and is reviewed, and we follow the process. What we are wanting to make sure, and we've had this conversation before, is that we're really providing the kids with the best supports. And so what are we looking at? What data do we see that helps us understand what the child needs? And if we're not doing that, then I feel like we're doing a disservice. Like you said, they can happen as a parallel, right? If we don't want to say, oh, we're going to test them, and so we're just going to wait. But if they're struggling, they're struggling. We need to be looking at seeing what we can do to
So
provide
Jody, I
support.
don't think it's right to say that we've never done that, because 10 years ago, I was told, we can't do the assessment until he's gone through the SST process.
So that was 10 years ago.
You said they've never, and that's all I'm answering to.
Right.
While I've been in this role and as director of C&I working closely with special ed, we don't do that. So that's what I'm trying to tell you is that is not our process, it is not our expectation. We certainly don't want to tell parents, no, take that back. First of all, we know it's illegal, and we also don't want to disrespect families that way.
But what if a parent comes to you and says, I want my child evaluated for special ed? The response is, we need to go through SST first.
That is not the response.
Yeah, I would disagree. They receive a letter, because it all comes through a person in my department.
I'm not talking about the formal letter of request. I'm talking about.
No, I'm sorry. When the parent does make a request, we send them a letter explaining their rights and informing them that in 15 days we'll respond. And it's possible that a school psychologist could review the record and say, actually, your student hasn't accessed any of the interventions, and in my professional opinion, we're not moving forward with the assessment, but that is in compliance with
I'm talking
what
about
the law
before
provides.
the official request.
Sue, I'm sure you're right. I think we do have staff out there that misunderstand our processes. So I agree that happens probably at the site level. What I'm trying to say is that's not the communication that's coming from here.
Can we please make it the communication to the site levels?
Well, we do our best. How many employees do we have? 3,000? I mean, we're really trying hard to clean it up. We work closely with our principals. I think our principals in the room can definitely speak to that. And really trying to be honest about what is expected and how we should be communicating with families. And that's a big part of why Seth was working with the principals at our admin retreat to try to help work with that.
Yeah.
son was diagnosed with autism 3. I brought it to the school in kindergarten and gave them the whole entire assessment. He was not assessed till I formally asked the district in 5th grade. How did that fall through the cracks for so long?
It would be really difficult for me to diagnose, what happened in that situation, but
That's a lot.
it certainly is.
The same thing
and-
happened to
Yeah.
my son when I entered him into kindergarten, asking him for services, and we didn't get any until 6th grade. So, just so you guys know that did
Yeah,
happen
yeah,
in the
certainly.
past, and it's nice to know that it's
Yeah, and it's
changing for
good
the
to hear in
better.
this forum, I mean, it's obviously not good to hear that happened, but it's good
No,
to
no.
hear in this forum that, that we have work to do still in that situation, because I think to all of us here, it's crystal clear, and we're always communicating out, but maybe we need to rethink how we're doing that and up our efforts in that area.
I just want to piggyback on what we're communicating out about the SST and the IEP. It's hearing that they could be aligned together. I've heard a few times from parents and from teachers, I get frustrated because the parents were told the minute they turned in their request for an IEP that it would shut down the SST, and that shouldn't be happening. So let's make sure that staff is
Yep.
aware that they shouldn't be shutting one down because the other one's in process. 'Cause
Okay, yep.
what I'm hearing is that's not from here, I don't know who's getting that message, but somehow it was still happening last year, and I'd like to have that closed sooner than later.
So can I add something about requests for assessments?
Yes.
I think what I'm gonna say is this is when state law and federal law do not meet. Because when you have state law that says when a parent makes a request for assessment, the LEA shall assess. That's what Ed Code says. What the federal law says is that when there's a request, a district or an LEA can either agree with that request or decline that request. So with those two things going on, I think that's when there is a disconnect sometimes when you have a process at the district level and people will say which category would this fit under. I've seen complaints or compliance complaint investigations from CDE because the federal government allows the LEA to decline an assessment, but Ed Code says you cannot. In terms of a complaint through CDE, I've seen CDE say, district, you are non-compliant because of this Ed Code. Okay. So the district is caught between a rock and a hard place because when I would say I don't want to say the district, I have been in a district where I've been inundated with requests for assessments, but all of those kids, based on input from the teacher, are doing okay. So there are some situations where it can be overused because there are private school, for example. I've had a lot of requests from private school, 10 in a month, and they just want to know what accommodations are appropriate for the kid. I was like, that's not the purpose of special ed, So if you want consultation, you want to do X, Y, and Z, partner with a district, yes, let's do that, but don't convince a parent to write a letter to the district to request for an assessment when what you wanted was a list of accommodations and modifications. So anyway, I just wanted to share that Ed Code and federal law is not aligned in that case. That's why you have some disconnect. I know Seth and his team will review parent requests on a case-by-case basis because you want to make sure that you're doing something that you think is in the best interest of the student. The district's obligation is to provide and offer faith. And the district has a standing marching order of child harm. And if the district is basing its data or its decision on data that says this child, based on teacher input, based on statewide assessments, is doing okay, and then maybe they would say, oh, I'm declining. But if they say okay, there's a request for an assessment that came in, and the parent and the district says it makes sense to assess this child now, then they can assess the child. Anyway, that's my 5 minutes.
Thanks for that insight, yeah.
I'm going to move on, but I will put a plug out. I think Veronica, when I was outside, mentioned Family University IEP process. Saturday, November 23rd.
Discussing that information with families.
Yeah.
IEP process.
Talk a little bit about the pre-referral process through the end of the process. So it's a great way to get more detailed information if you're interested. Okay, so I'm going to talk next just about the ecosystem of special education here at San Jose Unified and how we serve students with special needs, so that you can get a little bit of an idea. Bonus points for using the brand colors. I don't know if you know our logo. Each color represents a different group. Just need to mark it down. Points for me. It's a circle, obviously, and one of the bars is missing, which is bothering me. So I just want to talk a little bit about like all the different people that are involved, because I'm going to do a brief thing about staffing that I think will help set some context. So we have in the middle, obviously, our students, the most important. Up at the top, at the 12 o'clock, we have our teachers. And so you'll hear me use the term teacher. Sometimes I'll accidentally say case manager. Special education teachers, I often refer to them as case managers as well. Those are the people who are charged with being the one who implement the IEP that your student or a student has. We have about, actually I have it on one of the next slides, almost 170 case managers or special education teachers in our district, so it's a big team. Moving clockwise from there, we have a group that I call support staff. And so that can range from the instructional associate that's in the classroom, working under the supervision of the special education teacher supporting, to the school secretary, who plays a big role, to anyone else who's not a credential holder at the school site, who serves our students. It also applies to our team here in special education in our office. We have 4 support staff that play a huge role in what we do. Moving down, we have our school psychologist team. So our school psychologists are responsible for conducting the psychoeducational assessments, which is a battery of assessments. First, for when the student is initially being evaluated for special education services, and then once every 3 years after that, or in some cases, more frequently, to reevaluate them for eligibility. Moving down, we have our speech language pathologist, one of whom is here, who provide speech and language related services to our students. They also conduct assessments. Some of our students may only receive speech and language services, in which case our speech and language pathologists are also the case manager for those students. Moving down to 6 o'clock, we have our district experts, so it's sort of a big bucket, but we have a lot of people who have very specialized roles. For example, an assistive technology expert, 2 BCBAs, board certified behavior analysts, that provide behavior support, provides consultation to our teachers, do professional developments for us. There's a few other people in there who I'm forgetting at the moment. Deaf and hard of hearing specialist, yes, definitely. We have then, moving up to the green, external providers. So those are, a lot of times in our district, that takes the form of counseling services provided by external partners. So educationally related mental health services, general counseling. There's a few other things in there, but that's the idea. Then moving up, you have your special education administration team here. So me, our team here that sits at the district office that supports all of our school sites. And then we have obviously the site administrator team, so the principals that we have here, who obviously play a huge role in the provision of special education services to our students. I forgot to mention under district experts, it's things like occupational therapists, adaptive physical education teachers, sort of lump them into that bucket there. So, sort of the ecosystem of special education here at San Jose Unified. I'm actually going to skip that slide and just talk a little bit about, given the time, our student body. Actually, you know what? I'm going to need that slide to do so. So I'll hurry up. So I put this here. This is a very simplified pyramid of the continuum of services. And so special education has a gradient, a continuum of services that we can provide a student, ranging from the least restrictive environment going on down to more restrictive environments. And I put this up here, not to hopefully cause confusion, but some of the terms I'm going to use in terms of talking about our student body, I think it's necessary to have this conversation first. So at the tip of the pyramid there, we have general education setting. So students who are in the general education setting. As we move down in special education, the first sort of block there is support that's provided to students in class, in a general education setting. They're not being pulled out, they're getting those services or accommodations in the class. Next tier down, and this is very simplified, so I know there's a lot of nuance to this for those of you that are, have some more background in it. But the next down is pull-out services. So where a student is in the general education setting for a lot of the time, but might be pulled out for 30 minutes twice a week to work on math in a small group or something to that extent. those two blocks, we typically talk about them as being students in our resource support program, I flipped them, RSP. And so that's where a teacher is pushing in to a general education classroom, or in some cases pulling students out. So we classify those students as being in a resource support program. That also includes students who are maybe only receiving speech and language services, either in the class or being pulled out for 50 minutes a week by a speech language pathologist. The next big block down at the bottom in the blue there is students who are in a separate special education class with as much mainstreaming opportunities as appropriate. And so we call that a special day class, or SDC. So the big buckets we sort of look at here are students in an RSP program, students who are receiving speech and language services only, or students who are in a special day class, SDC. Just a little bit of orientation so this next slide makes sense. Yes?
Is there a threshold in terms of kids in the SDC classes? Let's say they're 50-50, and they jump to 40% SDC and 60%, mainstream.
Yeah.
Do you effectively put them into pull-out services?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a very fluid continuum. For the purposes of how we'll look at the data, the way we base it on is who their case manager is. So what program does their case manager teach in? But in that case, yeah, it's a mix, right? There can be students who are like, all over this pyramid in terms of where they are. There's no boundaries between the three blocks. Yeah, it's a good question.
And so it's not noted on this, are the students now in NPS or
Right. Just for the purposes of this, orientation. Yeah. So, just to give you a brief overview of sort of what special education looks like here at San Jose Unified in terms of our student population, also based this on the presentation that the Santa Clara person sent you. In the, this color, I'm kind of colorblind. In the upper left there, we have 22% of our students receiving special education services are just receiving speech and language services. Then the next down is the gold, students in a separate special education class, SDC. That's 1,221, about 34%. And then 44% of our students who are in the resource support program. That's sort of what our distribution looks like. This changes every day. Students move in, they move out, things change, etc. But this is here. I will say, because after I pulled this data and put this together, I realized that I had omitted. We have anywhere between 200 to 250 students who are being served in Santa Clara County of education programs. So they are our students, but they're attending programs that are run by the Santa Clara County Office of Education. I realized I omitted them from this analysis, so I apologize for that if you're looking at the numbers. I realized it late today.
I would love to.
What is our current count of special ed students?
It's the sum of this, which I have written down somewhere.
Less than 200?
Yeah, so it's like 3,300 something.
And does that include our students that we've placed in NPS and others?
It does.
So we've actually increased.
From last year, yes. We have increased slightly. We've increased slightly over the past 3 years. Yeah. We'll have a certified count after the October period that we talked about. I will say too, just for your reference, students that are in Santa Clara County of Office of Education programs would all be classified as the SDC in the SDC bucket. So you can have a little bit of context. All right. So our break in terms of grade level. So elementary students make up the biggest percentage, but you can see I won't read that there. We service students pre-K through 22, so we have our preschool students, elementary, middle, and then high, and that includes our post-secondary program at ACE, which someone referenced earlier.
So is this kind of constant every year, in that students are receiving less services as they go into middle school, or is this sort of a bubble that travels every year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I looked at that, I think last year for the 3 preceding years, and it was consistent over time. Yeah, I think a lot of it is, a lot of the change from elementary to middle, I haven't done a detailed analysis, has to do with students who are receiving speech and language services only in the elementary who exit out, who develop the skills and exit out. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see this chart just with SDC.
Yeah, definitely. I think likely, just based on my experience here, it probably stays pretty constant over time. Yeah, with a little bit of movement with new enrollments, sort of that. All right, 8 minutes left. Okay, so then said I would talk about our the special education professionals that we have serving our students. So this chart is both by type and it's also by FTE. So FTE, what a little acronym we use, it's called full-time equivalent, full-time employee, different acronym or different interpretations. It basically means how many days a week that person works. So 1.0 works 5 days a week, a 0.8 works 4 days a week. We have a number of providers, not teachers, but other providers who are part-time. And so these numbers represent FTE, not number of people, so that you're aware. So we have 176 special education teachers here in our district. Happy to say that as of the first day of school, we had 0 vacancies. We even had some people out on long-term leave who we covered with credentialed teachers because of some help from our HR department, how we did that. I will note too, there's 5 people that are pending their visa, so there are some substitutes in classrooms right now, but they will be fully ready to work very soon. And I was unfortunately notified that we have one person who was on a visa who is not going to be able to renew it, so we will have a vacancy at the end of this month that we're working to fill. But it was the culmination of a lot of hard work by a bunch of different people, so it was great that we were able to do that, and a big win for us, certainly. Yeah.
Was there a program last year to kind of try to get some of the general ed teachers to get special ed credentials? How's that going?
Yes, so I'll put a plug in for it. It's our RISE program. Promise I didn't pay him to bring this up. The RISE program is an acronym for Rise into Special Education. It's a program that's available for existing general education teachers as well as existing employees who are instructional associates who have a bachelor's degree. So general education teachers can get into the program and we will fund their obtainment of a special education credential. Instructional associates who have a bachelor's degree can apply and get in as well, and we will fund their special education credential as well, in addition to providing a laptop, a mentor teacher that they're paired with to work throughout the year, a fantastic cohort leader who's one of our program specialists, as well as a bunch of other supports, a computer, to ensure that they're successful. So the idea is they will, on the instructional associate side, they will spend 1 year working under a master teacher. We have 7 right now who are doing that. Next school year, we're going to start with 7 special education teachers who came through that program, ready to teach in our classrooms for their first year. We're trying to double or triple that for next year, so that the following school year, we'll have 20 to 21 fully ready to go teachers for the 2021-22 school year, if I got that right. Yeah. So, spread the word. We've had a huge media blitz. You might have seen some of the local news interviews that have been happening, but it's a fantastic program. We really want to invest in the people that we have at San Jose Unified. And also, we want to get people ready so that when they step into the classroom on the first day, that they are ready. They've had a year under that master teacher to learn and to see things. Yeah, so, question? No. So just really quickly, this is my last slide. So, speech language pathologists, 48, currently no vacancies. We have 2 that are awaiting getting their full full license in California that are coming from out of state. So they are currently not working, but will be shortly. School psychologists, we have 19.25. We were looking to fill 2 positions. I made an offer at about 4:45 this afternoon and got an email since I've been sitting here that said the person took it. So 1 less. I think he's going to be here on Monday actually, which is great. OTs, fully staffed, 13.8. Program specialists, fully staffed at 11. Program specialists, for those of you who don't know, former teachers in the most part, although we do have a former counselor and a former SLP on our staff, that support our school sites and programs with a myriad of things, and then we have 3 full-time managers as well who work on my team, who oversee the program specialists and help administer special education here.
What's the percentage of contract employees?
The percentage, let's see, for teachers it's less than 5%. SLPs maybe 20 to 30. Psychologists, I'm not sure, and the rest, I'm not sure either. Yeah.
So these are the ones that we contract through NPAs?
Correct, correct. So as someone alluded to earlier, there's a big shortage of qualified personnel in the Bay Area. And we always prioritize hiring our own people, but we also need to prioritize having our students get the services that they deserve. And so we use every means possible to get quality licensed professionals in the roles that we need them in. Yeah.
So we've had a situation, actually happened twice last year, where there were staff missing and we didn't get notified.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's some way to fix that, but we'll find out 3 months later in an IEP. Oh, by the way, one of your son's teachers disappeared 6 weeks ago. We're not really allowed to talk about it. Or your teacher disappeared halfway through the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those both happened to us last year.
Okay.
So it's a little frustrating that even if just somebody's up front said, hey, this teacher had to leave, there's going to be a substitute, but I would request that communication be improved.
Yeah, okay.
We had that
That's a good
situation
suggestion.
happen at the elementary level where even the site hadn't been notified that that person had left by HR here. So hopefully those lines of collaboration between here and our school sites are improving so that those communications can go out faster to the families.
Yeah, always room
You
for.
can kind of tell by the quality of the IEP that it's a little weak in some of the information because their staff member left and they don't have the information that the person that just left had. And so we're kind of dealing with the, not so great IEP, but then they're trying to cover it by saying, filling in the gaps, but it doesn't make any sense, It's like, what happened to this missing book? Well, we don't know because the teacher's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously not situations when it have happened, but it's a good reminder. I think we've got some time coming up with different teams that I think I can reinforce that message about communication. But you should always be able to ask your student's case manager the situation. They should be the one who should be able to tell you about all of the details. True. But they would be assigned another case manager. We always have coverage.
Substitutes are not allowed.
Correct, right. So we would have to have someone else
Those were the
cover.
issues.
Yep.
Our case manager would just say he's not allowed to say anything.
Got it.
That's what happened to us.
Okay. Yeah, in that case, I would say utilize your site principals and assistant principals. They can definitely give you the straight answer on that. All right, so did I finish?
Yes.
8 o'clock exactly. One more question.
Oh, I was just gonna say, one of the things I did recently in my IEP is I asked for a summary of all services performed every Friday afternoon. So then I know something like that happened.
And then that was a site that was willing to do it, so that was helpful. Yeah, but sometimes you run into, you may not always be so lucky at this point. We could ask. Thank you. I think one thing we've consistently heard from families is wanting to know where all the programs are. There's been a huge shuffle in programs this year.
Got them all, but it's way too long. We'll do it in October.
Deal.
We'll do it in October. Yes. I made slides because I thought maybe I'll have more time, but I knew you guys also asked a lot of questions.
I'll play it back in the film and pause.
I had 2 plans. Yeah. But thank you so much for your time. And
thank you, Seth.
A great start to the school year for all your students.
Thank you.
I'll come back to you.
So thank you to all the staff and to all the community leaders from other groups that have come to join us tonight. And I think this is a wonderfully effective audience to have for Community Advisory Committee, and I really appreciate everyone's presence tonight. Thank you.
Definitely.
With that said, meeting adjourned.
Take some snacks, because
please.
It's not going out. Yes.
Thank you very much. Is it? Because I'm making it up as I go.
Well, I think everyone does, right? That's kind of how it works. No, area 1, 7
Thank you. How are you doing?
I spent a lot of time sorting, packing, stuff, so I was very happy to get back to the class. I'm not thinking so I went to San Juan, we got part-time, I'm there full-time. So, nobody on the team speaks Spanish, three people. But anyway.